think is kind of ironic, because the idea, the language of love is a Christian language. This comes from the Gospel of Matthew, just one instance, in which Jesus is asked by a young rabbi. He's asked as a rabbi. Remember, Jesus was a young rabbi himself. Asked, what is the most important law, the most important of the Jewish Mosaic laws? Jesus replies, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second one is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. This idea that all of the Jewish legal tradition was sort of absorbed into these two commandments, love God and love your neighbor, became a central plank in Christianity as preached by the Apostle Paul. For him, love is really the idiom of Christianity. To love your neighbor and love God is really the only law that's applicable to Christians. And even centuries later, in the 1600s and 1700s, when Christians started, or Western Europeans started kind of breaking out of the control of the church, started looking critically at the Bible, not as revealed scripture, but as a book that had to be criticized and historicized, and maybe not seen as divine. When they started breaking out of the strictures of religious tradition, this language of love continued. This is very interesting. So, a person who in many ways is the father of modern biblical criticism, one might even say the father of modernity, is a Jewish philosopher from Amsterdam. He died in 1677. His name is Benedict or Baruch Spinoza. People have often heard of Spinoza. If you ever want to read an incredible book, read his theological political treatise. And you will just, as if you see kind of the beginning of modernity right in this book. He rejects the idea that the Bible is a revealed book designed to apply to people throughout history, for Christians in all times and in all places. For him, it's a book that was only revealed to or only meant for the people of Israel at the time of the Jewish prophets. What he says is that the truth of religion can be known through reason. But what is the truth of religion? It's love God, love your neighbor, act charitably. So in the end, it's still expressed through this Christian idiom of love. If you look at those individuals who are most representative of the project of modernity, people oftentimes, we live in this modern world, or postmodern world, or post-postmodern world, whatever we live in. People look at their surroundings today and they think this is just the way the world is, or has always been. That's not true. We live in a world that is constructed, a project that was constructed by philosophers, social engineers, thinkers, and politicians throughout the 1800s and 1900s. And one of these people's name is Auguste Comte, the French person named Auguste Comte. And he has this, plan for a positive, modern Western world. He's, by the way, the first person that I know of who ever used the word the West. We talk about the West all the time. The West this, the West that, right? He's the person who started it. It's very interesting. Mid-1800s, as far as I know. And he talks about this Western Republic in which, capitalists and scientists will organize the society, and everybody will live together by subjugating all their desires and ambitions to the universal love. Universal love. So again, this idea of that love is sort of essential for social cohesion. But I think the real origin of this modern intolerant tolerance is with a French romantic philosopher in the 18th century named Jean-Jacques Rousseau. I'm sure you've heard of Rousseau in his book, The Social Contract. Had a big impact on later European thinkers, later American thinkers. He has this idea of kind of an ideal republic where everybody, each individual is committed to realizing their own worth as a person, their own worth as a human being. And everybody's committed to others realizing their own worth and value as a human being. By the way, he calls this love of self. So again, we have this idea of love. One of the things he sort of thinks of as a way to promote this society is what he calls civil religion. Civil religion. And this is really a kind of a type of religion. Sort of certain characteristics that religion has to have. One of the few rules for this religion, or what he thinks is an acceptable religion, is that it prohibits intolerance. He prohibits intolerance. What does he say? And I quote, "Tolerance should be given to all religions that tolerate others, so long as their dogmas contain nothing contrary to the duties of citizenship." What does that mean to tolerate others? In a way, that my whole talk tonight is about what does tolerance mean. Does tolerance mean I recognize your right to have a belief that's different from mine? That's not enough for Rousseau. For Rousseau, tolerance means, and I quote, that it is impossible to live at peace with those we regard as damned. It is impossible to live at peace with those we regard as damned. You cannot live for him in a society, or at least in the society that he wants, you cannot live in peace if you believe that someone else in that society is going to hell, or if they believe you're going to hell. This is very interesting. But where does this come from? Why does he say this? I think one of the reasons is, he lived in the mid-1700s, mid to late 1700s, and he looked back at the tremendous religious violence that had destroyed Europe from around 1517 to around 1650. 150 years of religious warfare. Countless numbers of people killed, resources destroyed. He sees religious intolerance as a slippery slope to violence. But the second major ingredient, I think, or explanation for why Rousseau believes this, why he forbids people from believing that other people are going to hell, is his tremendous religious skepticism. I just talked to you about Spinoza, about the kind of people breaking free from religious tradition, and this was a big factor in intellectual life in Europe in the 1600s and 1700s, as it is today. That people didn't believe any longer, or at least intellectuals didn't believe any longer, that the religious traditions that they knew of Christianity and Judaism, that these were really the way to know the truth. For them, truth, salvation, happiness, understanding existed outside these old religious traditions. They no longer had confidence